We can right now look at our current economical landscape in two ways. There is, of course, a bearish scenario. There is also a very bullish scenario. And as always, I am going to try to dramatically summarize and tell you which way I'm leaning, and also the reasons why and how I think it's going to affect our crypto bags going forward. So stay till the end. I'm going to try to drop as much of my interpretation on you as I possibly can. Firstly, a mentality right now suggests that we may be in a scenario where the Fed has essentially tried to tighten, but ultimately the market has loosened. Now, you may be saying to me, but Ben, we have just seen some real price appreciation in the stock market right now. Some stocks even hitting all time highs. And yes, we have. But don't let that fool you into thinking that it's built on anything substantial. A large part of that uptick in price performance to me seems to be coming from credit card debt, auto loans, and the US deficit. And so a lot of that price appreciation that we're seeing is really on an unstable foundation, and I don't think it's sustainable. Now, we're seeing some big company layoffs too that will only compound. Companies like Cisco. I think this issue in itself, to summarize, is also going to get a lot worse. We were prepping for a perfect landing with the economy staying strong and the Fed cutting rates. This would have been an ideal market condition, of course, for crypto. Now it seems that things are a little trickier. CPI did come down, but didn't fall as much as anticipated. PPI also took a huge rise again, with inflation even getting worse. And so the markets really haven't liked that at all. The argument here is that if we can't get inflation down right now, then what happens when things in the economy weaken further? We could be looking at some major sell offs. Perhaps we come into that risk off environment where we know that crypto isn't necessarily an investment avenue many are willing to explore at times like that. If we see a 30% drop in stock value, there's a good chance that Bitcoin may follow suit and even drop down to around 30K if you listen to a lot of the financial gurus out there, which is over a 40% drop from here, which could likely spell a disastrous drop, of course, for all our beloved altcoins. Very doomy and gloomy, I know. Now, after saying all that, I'm going to look at the bull scenario and explain why I anticipate this playing out and give you a glimpse through the lens I interpret our state of economy right now. Now, we talked in a previous video about the current pain point with commercial real estate. Essentially, banks loading into super safe commercial real estate sector, and then you have a world where half the people decide that they don't necessarily need to go to the office, instead elect to work from home, meaning in huge metropolitan areas that have notoriously done very, very well in the commercial real estate space, like New York, for instance, have their properties losing value, being worth less now. And so lots of banks are finding themselves underwater on those loans. These banks have loans, right, that are under an immense amount of pressure in a very serious way. These banks also don't want to acknowledge taking a hit on them right now. If they do acknowledge such a massive hit in a trillions of dollars asset class, things start to become insolvent for the US banking system, and we find ourselves in a situation that gets ever more crazy and unstable. With New York Community Bank even just now down 60 to 70% over the last week or so, and we don't know if that is going to be the first or the last in this potential budding issue of banks that are getting drilled into the floor. I think they will be allowed to fail. Once that happens, probably in a few weeks, the crisis spreads then to larger banks, and we start to see some major waves and closures taking place. I've talked to a lot of folks in my network about this issue, and it is something that they are very, very fearful of right now. You can't not be. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds a lot more doom and gloom, right? Well, as these things play out, at a certain point, it becomes difficult for the Fed to pallet allowing these banks to fail. It simply can't continue. And so they have no choice but to turn back on that money printer. Now, I'm not saying this is a great long term solution, it's just the only solution that they're able to turn to. As commercial real estate then starts to truly be recognized as a serious problem, the serious problem that it is, investors are going to run for the hills away from these stocks and look for safer places to put their money. We've talked about this before. Why should they want to stay at a bank that may or may not be bailed out? You simply wouldn't, right? You cut the cord and you'd run for greener pastures. This is what will cause a potential banking crisis with record bailouts for the banks. The money printer then is turned up to the max again, resulting in crypto shooting to the moon. Crypto is now that safer investment avenue in a scenario like that. This is also going to cause tech stocks. So tech stocks and crypto will likely, in my opinion, experience the biggest bull market they ever have. How high could we be looking at this going? Well, we could assume that we will be printing probably the most money in human history, which sounds ridiculous, but is the most realistic scenario as inflation continues to grow. We have elections coming up where we have people giving stuff away for votes. People love free stuff, especially when they can't directly see what the true cost is. People are dummies on the whole. We know this. We have the fear of wars pending. Wars are very inflationary. With everyone increasing their defense budget, they become even more inflationary. And then we have the money printer to pay for those potential wars. All of this, coupled with the fact that we have trillions and trillions of dollars potentially already entering the crypto market through TradFi, now having a much more direct and appealing path to make the shift through those ETFs. This tells me that we are building into a super cycle with a convergence of major new interest of institutions, technological development, and money printing. This will be trillions of dollars of new market cap being present in the crypto ecosystem. Now, for those in the comments section who aren't able to connect the dots on your own concerning your own tokens, more money in system equals more price appreciation throughout the entire crypto sector. This is where the unique selling points and fundamentals of your chosen tokens will start to work their magic and really look to obtain as much of that new market share that is coming to fruition. In capturing as much of this vastly increased revenue coming into crypto as possible, each and every one of our tokens, if vetted correctly, should be seeing some serious price appreciation. Of course, right? It just makes sense. Now, for those in the private group or a regular viewer here, don't worry. We have always been sure to take positions in tokens and projects with vast fundamentals that we anticipate becoming stronger even as the market progresses. We are positioned very well. So whether that be Richard Hart tokens like pulsechain, pulsex, hex, or projects like Casper, Quant, we are well positioned as we continue to DCA in accordingly. Patience, folks. Patience. In my mind, things are aligning very nicely. You may have to use some creative thinking here in terms of weeding through a lot of what seems to be on the surface, a lot of negative sentiment. But ultimately, those silver linings are deep, and a lot of people don't seem to realize just how they can align. I would be interested in hearing your opinions in the comments below, as always. And as always, please do subscribe, like, feel free to join our private group where we talk about some new exciting projects and tokens that are coming to fruition that we anticipate absolutely crushing it in this next cycle. So, as always, stay in the know, stay in the loop, and make sure that you're staying relevant with anything that's going on in the macro sphere, because ultimately these are the things that are going to have the biggest impact on your crypto bags outside of the micro bubbles that your tokens live in. I hope this was helpful.